And now, you will fly to him, and you will battle him to the death. Black and blue. Fight night. The greatest gladiator match in the history of the world. God versus man. Day versus night. Son of Krypton versus Son of Krypton.
The time has come. The debate of the last year. Consweat versus Cavill. Trunks or no trunks? Grey or not only grey? Zack Snyder versus James Gunn. It's time for Man of Inflation versus Domestic Man. Now before we get into this, I would like to say this is just my opinion. Meaning, you can have your own opinion. And I do enjoy both movies. Hell, James Gunn and Zack Snyder are two of my favourite filmmakers. Also, I won't be judging both movies on things like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb or box office. I think those are very flawed systems. For example, by that logic of box office, Avatar will be the best movie ever made. It is not the best movie ever made. That would also mean Black Panther is the best MCU movie. It's definitely not the best MCU movie. Or even mean that The Last Jedi is better than Revenge of the Sith. I'll be judging it off categories of my own choosing. Now, I could have gone for more categories, but this video would be like 20 years long if I did that. So I've narrowed it down to what I think are some of the most important ones. Being visuals, cinematography, Superman himself, the side cast, the antagonist, how the movie acts as like a first movie in the cinematic universe, the action, the music, and last but not least, some random ginger I found in the street's opinion. Round 1. Visuals. Now I think this is going to be one of my more controversial takes on this list. I'm also not going to pretend that I am some sort of expert on how visuals are in movies. If I see something I think it's visually nice, I will say so. And if I don't like it as much, I will say that. But I am going to go for Superman for this one for one reason. It's just more colourful. Superman just looks more like a Superman movie when it comes to its visuals than Man of Steel. Man of Steel is just too grey for a Superman movie. And there's not much else to say. So round 1 goes to Superman. Round 2, cinematography. Now whatever I had to say about Man of Steel when it comes to its visuals, it completely makes up for it with its cinematography. Goddamn, is it sexy? I mean, is there anything else to say? Just look at that first fight scene. It's not even like Superman's cinematography is bad. It's just that Man of Steel cinematography is just built different. This round goes to Man of Steel. 1-1. A quick interruption to say please like and subscribe. It will mean a lot to me. I'm trying to reach 100 subs before the end of the year. Yes, it's an unrealistic goal, but I believe. Round 3. Music. Now the main theme for Superman is a reworking of John Williams' original theme, which is the Superman theme, and it is amazing, but it's not exactly original. Where in Man of Steel, there is an original theme, and it does also slap. So I don't really know how to judge it. So I'm gonna call it a draw. 2-2. Round 4. Superman himself. Now this is probably the biggest point so far when it comes to my overall opinion on each film and which one is better. Superman from Superman is the Superman that could inspire the Iron Giant. He smiles, he's kind, and he inspires hope. Whilst Man of Steel feels more like a weird allegory for Jesus and God. Don't get me wrong, I actually do think it's a relatively interesting idea to explore. It's just not what I prefer from my Superman. Superman from Superman feels like a man, whilst from Man of Steel, he feels like an alien god, and I think that's the best way of putting it. Point goes to Superman. 3-2. Round 5. The sidecast. This is probably the easiest one. Man of Steel sidecast is very weak. It's probably the main problem with the film overall. Superman and Lois have zero chemistry, and the rest are just forgettable. On the other hand, Superman has a far better Lois, who on her own would beat the entirety of the sidecast of Man of Steel. But there's also the Justice Gang and Jimmy Olsen, and I would say I personally prefer Jonathan Kent as Superman, but I would take Martha for Man of Steel. This round goes to Superman. 4-2. Round 6. The antagonists. Zod is probably the best character in Man of Steel. It is kind of tragic that he's given a purpose from birth, meaning he doesn't really have a choice in all he does. I mean, he could have just taken over an empty planet and not have to deal with Superman. The film doesn't really give a reason for why he doesn't do that. To my memory, maybe it does, I apologise. But after he loses everything, he can no longer fulfill his purpose in life. And a wee side note, it's not particularly related to this point, but I've never really gotten the hate for Superman killing Zod. I mean, what was Bro meant to do? Just let him keep destroying the city? Like, what? But there's also something I love about Lex Luthor, and the pure envy and hatred for Superman. The pure pettiness. There's just something I love so much about it. Like that one scene where he's playing one-man Russian roulette, and that one A scene is just incredible. I mean, I quote that like every other day, more or less. You know, I actually think Stannis Baratheon would have been a bad king. Oh, really? Would I? When it comes to both movies' side villains, I think they're about the same. I'd maybe give the slight edge to Superman due to the Israel's president. Round 6, I'm gonna say is a draw. 5-3. Round 7, the action. Now, Man of Steel has a far bigger scale when it comes to action than Superman, which I do believe is its downfall. There is way too much destruction in this film. Like, thousands upon thousands of people died during that final battle. So many died due to Superman's actions, it's just far too many for a Superman film. On the other hand, the action in Superman is smaller scale, but feels far more Superman. It feels like Superman is trying to save lives during the action scenes. But in Man of Steel, it feels like he's trying to kill his opponents. This round goes to Superman. 6-3. Round 8. Which sets up its cinematic universe better. Now, to be honest, Man of Steel doesn't really do any setup for the DCEU. And to be honest, that's also not a problem. For me, I think it's 10 times more important to try and be a good movie rather than setting up a universe. That being said, Superman does kind of do both, showing us that there's been superheroes on Earth and metahumans for 300 years. And it does also show us other superheroes, e.g. the Justice Gang, which is most likely the start of the Justice League. I'm not going to say I think Superman does like an amazing job of setting up the DCU, but I think it does a decent job, whilst Man of Steel doesn't really do anything, if I'm going to be honest. This round goes Superman. 7-3. Last round. Some random gin joy found in the street.
Hello, my name is Masonverse. I am Masonverse. This is my segment, What Does This Random Queer Think? First of all, the Henry Cavill suit sucks. It looks made out of snakeskin, which fits here because he looks like he should be playing either an evil billionaire or Edward Cullen's disapproving father.
Who?
Why does General Zod look like that one cousin that will not leave you alone at the family function? The horrid aesthetic and color grading lead heavily into my next criticism, which is that Man of Steel destroys Superman, and, by proxy, the greater cast characterization. Man of Steel has no whimsy, no joy in its heart. Superman is barely a character, coming across as an empty vessel, with ideals founded less in experience and passion, and more in this weird, macho man, grimdark fantasy, where everything is miserable. You get to at once be this forever tortured, misunderstood figure, and at the same time this ultra-powerful, godlike creature, who is ultimately always justified in their actions. This movie is an absolute slog to get through, which feels less like an introduction to this magical and entertaining universe, and more like an open and shut case with nearly nothing interesting to say. By contrast, James Gunn's Superman handles more intense and complex conflicts in a much more fun yet still grounded way. The term grounded is often used to apply to these grimdark worlds, but that doesn't feel accurate to me. The real grounded movies are the ones steeped in love, open-mindedness, and a genuine desire to create something that can reach people and be there for them. Superman 2025 is a beautiful movie, with characters that feel real and dynamic, in a world with endless possibilities, that at once manages to inspire you with thrill, an immense amount of creativity, and a beating heart that will leave you believing anyone can be a force for good. Superman isn't a beacon of hope because he's some godlike figure. Superman is a beacon of hope because he's someone who, with all of that power and the stress that comes with it, maintains his humanity. Someone who believes every living creature to be inherently valuable, not because of some vague list of commandments he must meet set forth upon him by the narrative, but because his world is so full of life that even when he struggles with carrying it on his shoulders, there is no part that he would not give anything to save. When you're stuck within yourself, within the horror that every day can bring, and trying not to lose your humanity is an act that actively hurts. When you're stuck within yourself, within the horror that every day can bring, and trying not to lose your hope is an act that actively hurts, Superman tells you that you are not alone. All you need to do is look up.
And that's that. Superman wins 9-3. Now, I didn't really expect Superman to dominate as much as it did. I do enjoy both films, as I said before, but I do think James Gunn just understands what Superman is more than Zack Snyder. I will say, I do think Zack Snyder's DC films are really interesting. I don't think they're executed the best. They're actually quite similar to the Star Wars prequels to me. I'm sure that's a video for some other day. I also could have done more rounds on different things. The main reason I didn't do rounds on like the plot, story or emotion is I think that would take quite a long time for me to actually explain why I preferred Superman in those categories. One thing I will say I do love about Zack Snyder films is that his films are always interesting, even if not always good. And it always do look visually very nice. I mean, Rebel Moon, that movie is fucking horrible, but it is a pretty sexy movie. I hope you enjoyed the video. Snyder Cult, please don't murder me. I just speak the truth. Like and sub, follow me on Twitch and Twitter, and sub to my other YouTube channel. Anyway, have a good day.